Hello there. This is another cut from the famous AutoHub Show, and today I'm not doing a live show. I'm actually doing a recorded interview, so don't confuse the background behind me. Obviously, we've done live shows for many years, so if you want to check out our live show, check it out online on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. In addition to that, we do two shows live a week, but on top of that, we have great guests like my buddy here, Jeff, that want to share some insight on their journey, but more importantly, how they can help you and your dealership or your friends who run dealerships, make more money and do it better. So, lots about me. I've been doing this a long time, and it's not about me. It's about our guests. So, Jeff, maybe you can tell us why auto, how'd you get here, and why did you select the auto industry? What was the thought process?
Well, as others have probably said, you kind of fall into things. Um, my background and my desire was to become the next Formula One race driver when I was younger. And that led me to uh, being a full-time instructor at a racing school near Toronto. And from there, it morphed as time went on because of the understanding of dynamics of vehicles into doing events for the auto industry. And now right at the to where we are today, I now own a business that we do events for the auto industry, and we do track events at the racetrack and another division, and we're about to open up a third division, which is fleet driver training.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, we actually did a show. It was actually a random happenstance. So, a buddy of mine in the U.S. has a friend whose kid is a NASCAR driver, and then he's getting into Indy. So he said, "Oh, how can I get sponsored?" I said, "Well, why don't we do a show where we have an actual race car driver talking about that?" And then I brought in a buddy of mine who works at Steve Diamond's new shop. And actually, I just got connected to another race car driver who happens to be female. And I'll probably do another show where I have sort of the men versus the women race car drivers talking about it. But it was interesting because another good friend of the show is Sarah Porsche Parts Darkman out of LA. She's actually selling her business, but it was her husband's business. She's a Porsche fanatic. So what she does is part out, wrecked Porsches to Porsche aficionados. So whole cars or parts of cars or whatever. But that business was her husband's. He's unfortunately no longer with us. But she's, I guess, turning that down or selling that off. But she's also a car fanatic. So Steve Dinan, if you're not familiar, was the first guy to chip BMWs back in the day, which he sold that company, I believe, to Magnaflow. But he now has another company. So the race car driving show was interesting because as a young Mexican American guy, he was talking about speed, and we were sort of, I guess, bragging on how fast people have driven. So I guess I'll ask you that question. You are obviously a race car, aspiring race car driver. Was it a speed thing? Was it a competition thing? What was the reason?
Actually, I guess all of that. It was more the thrill, but the bigger part of it was that when I was younger, and I played sports, the typical Canadian sports, hockey, baseball, played a little bit of soccer, although didn't like it. Um, so the hockey and the baseball, I didn't get to really high levels, but I was without having to practice it, I was pretty decent. I was relatively athletic, and I with again without practice, I was either an assistant or I was a captain of the teams, and then I just found myself. I was working on a farm in Niagara,
Yep.
and I was driving the farm vehicle and sliding it around. And I'm like, this is so much fun. I was, I think, 14 or 15 years old,
Okay.
and they gave me the keys to this flatback Pinto. And when I say flatback, they just cut it off, and there's a piece of wood to put all the fruit on.
Yeah.
And I'm driving this around and sliding it around the orchard, and I was having a ball. And I'm like, I want to go racing. And so then I found a way to go to a racing school, and I found it extremely challenging. And it was the challenge that actually brought me to it. I liked the challenge. It was a challenge that, that I hadn't seen before in the sports that I played. And uh, I wanted to pursue it. I wanted to get better. So it was something that I could and had to practice in order to get better, to understand it, get my brain wrapped around a lot of the techniques. Um, and so it was the challenge that brought me to it. And once I got into the challenge, then, it's not so much speed. I mean, it is, but it isn't, because speed is relative. Once you drive 10 laps on a racetrack, it's not fast anymore. You don't feel that rush of speed, but you're acclimatized to it. So it's more about the skill and making minimal mistakes, and just, the feeling the movement of the car was a thrill. And then understanding it, my brain would work from, okay, the car attitude changed a little bit that time on that particular corner. Why did it do it? Where did it come from? Was it a tire? Was it I was in a slightly different spot? All those things, because they were such a challenge for me, I gravitated towards it.
So, I mean, and I'm not a racer, to say, I mean, I'm an amateur street racer when I was younger and stupid and like more bravado, I guess, or just didn't care if I got dead. At the end of the day, and I remember this because when I worked for Honda, we'd have these ride and drive events. And I remember there was one, I think it was with Acura or something, that a friend of mine went to, and they like destroyed a clutch on the car because people were just being morons. But the thing that was really funny on one of the ones we went to, and it might have been for the S2000, I don't remember, it was years ago now. But they were like, "This is not a trial for our F1 team. This is trying to understand the car. That's the point of this." So, when you're looking at, I guess, racing dynamics, whether it be Porsche's new experience center that just opened in Toronto, I believe, and they have a couple in the US and globally, or, that manufacturer says, listen, like, I want to teach salespeople how to, or what the differences are between car A and car B. Or actually, a good friend of the show, she writes for the Globe and Mail. She does global events where she gets to drive cars like in Italy, and it's like a dream job, pretty much. She's the car editor, I believe. So why would someone do an event, whether it be a manufacturer or a dealer group or a customer centric one, or maybe in an auto show? Like, what type of events do you do?
Uh, there's a variety. The bulk of the events that we've done over our existence of 15 years have been for the automotive media,
Okay.
where it was a launch of a vehicle to the media. It could just be a opportunity for the manufacturer to talk to the media. So it might not be a launch of a vehicle. It might just be a general interest, but vehicles involved, where they have an opportunity to drive the vehicles and get stories. So from a manufacturer perspective, it was the story. They were looking for print, for video, for whatever content that they could get. That was their end goal. And then consumer drives, the drives that we've done over the years have been in parking lots with, like, we call it an autocross. It's a pylon course track that we set up. Some of them are centered around what it would be like on the road, but you're going to have a compression of all the things that can happen. A railroad track that you might go over, a tight corner, and a large sort of sweeping corner that you would experience going on to a highway. All those things would be in a drive that might last 25 to 45 seconds for a participant. And they might do a couple of laps, and we would get them to experience the anti-lock brakes, the stability management program of the car, so that they could see the technology, and and what the car has to offer that you really oftentimes don't get to experience on a test drive. All the passive and active safety features. Well, not passive. We don't want to deal with passive safety features because that's airbags. Um, but they get to experience the ability of the vehicle in a test drive. and you don't typically get to do that in a normal test drive because you're out on the city streets,
Yeah.
and police and pedestrians don't like those sorts of things.
So is this
So there's,
this be comparative for the media? Like you're
I'm
comparing
sorry.
this car to that car? Like let's just say it's like a Honda Toyota. Would you be comparing the cars, or would it just be experience that new Honda?
With the very, very seldom. I mean, in gosh, and before I opened up this company, we were doing this with another company. I was managing drive programs for 7 years. So what are we, 20, 15, anyway, 22 years or so of this. I think I've done two programs where we had the media in a competitive vehicle.
Okay.
Um, the opportunity is just too great for a media member to find something they like on the competitor's vehicle
Right.
than your vehicle. So it wasn't, um, and it was hard to for the our contact at the manufacturer level to explain to their boss, why did you have the competitors there? And why did a competitor do better in this than our vehicle to the automobile? So that's typically not done. But for consumers, it again, in some cases it was done, but more for doing dealer sales training.
Yeah.
We almost always had the competitors there.
Yeah.
And it was more a case of, this is what you're dealing with, this is what you are up against,
Yeah.
and you need to, because it's not going to change. The vehicle that's in the same class that you're going to sell against
Mhm.
is this, and you need to figure out how you're going to sell your vehicle in competition with that particular one. And inevitably, I mean, all vehicles are pretty good, and some vehicles are a little better in some areas than others. And that's what they, in those sorts of trainings, would extrapolate is, okay, that vehicle is better in this area here than ours is, and ours is better in this area, and this is what I'm going to focus on selling. So, and I'm sure, being in the industry, most people that are in sales for dealers will have experienced that in some way, shape, or form. And, that's part of our business as well. Um, and so those are the different drive experiences that we have done in that arena. But well, the consumer drives also include racetrack and off-road that we've done, and on-road for that matter. We've done a few on-road ones, but they're very much like a typical test drive. But it was more about getting bums in seats for people that weren't coming to the stores, that were in a non-confrontational arena where we could just say, hey, come for a 10-minute test drive to experience the vehicle. If you don't like it, there's no sales pitch here. We're just going to explain the vehicle, and you have the opportunity of walking away with either a mindset of, oh, the next time I'm going to go look at buying a car, this is now on my list, or, yeah, that was fun, but maybe not. So at
So would
least
that be
got
in
them past
combination with
that.
like an auto show, or would that be like a standalone event, or how does that work?
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
Would that be part of like an auto show type experience, or would that be something that's a standalone event, or how does that work?
It could be both, actually. They've definitely done it at the auto shows. Um, and but it a lot. Oftentimes, it's a standalone. We've done cross country tours where we take a group of vehicles, 10 to 15 vehicles, and it's a circus. We go from location to location across the country, and either invited, or we're in a location where we can just, you know, quickly invite somebody who's at a show, or in that very busy area to go for a drive.
And that's something where the manufacturer's really getting the customer to focus on, or getting the media to focus on a vehicle. Would you have any advice for, say, dealers? Like I remember years ago, I think it was TNT Honda here in town when I was in the car business, retail. They had basically purchased their competitive cars against, say, a Honda Accord, for example, so that way they were a destination for all the test drives. So they could say, "Oh, you want to drive an Altima? No problem, we can do that."
Mhm.
Have you ever done the events with, say, Highline stores or those kind of stores where it's like a customer-centric event on selling vehicles, or no?
Um, yes, a very long time ago. They're not as popular. We've looked and talked to dealers recently about doing things like that, but it's more what they're finding is it's the bigger part is more not necessarily a loyalty program, but um, a customer relation program where they want to create a stronger relationship, whether they're a customer or not. The potential of them being a customer is worth building a relationship so that they're comfortable walking into the store at any time and feeling that they're not just going to be hounded. Like I think for the majority of the population, somebody walking into a dealership, you're walking in there for one purpose, and that is you're looking at buying a car.
Yeah,
But why can't we just walk into a dealership and just say, like I'm walking into a store at the mall, I'm just browsing. I just want to take a look and see what's here now. I'm not in the market just yet, but I might be 6 months, 8 months down the road. And if I want information about the car, or I just want to take a look at it. And I think most people will not go into a dealership for that reason because they're uncomfortable that they're going to be approached and they're going to have to give up their phone number and they're going to be called and called and called. And so creating an event that people can come to, whether it's a community event, and it has some sort of a drive component, whether it's just a light, scavenger hunt rally, car rally, or these things are many dealers have done. We do them. They're just part of our repertoire, where we can create something, or we can do a driver training where it's more of a valuable thing. Driver training for your teenage new driver, and we'll put them onto an area to do a little bit of skid pad training to understand, when the car starts to slide, to understand the technology of the that the cars have to offer and how what it's doing for you, so you understand that when the ABS brakes are starting to do their job, it's not because they're supposed to do it all the time. It's because you might not have any traction, and understanding that. So little things that can be done where it's your customer is the parent, but we're going to do a program for the kids, and we're going to do a driver training program that's going to be fun for them, and it's going to teach them a lot and hopefully give them more respect for the task of driving. So those are sorts of things that can be done at the dealer level that create the relationship between their customers and themselves.
so similar to what someone like Lucid or Tesla would do, where it's basically more about checking out the car or even VinFast versus what, say, a Honda dealer would do. But more importantly, like those events that you have, like a new owner clinic or a ladies' night or whatever that is, sort of similar to that, but really
Mhm.
with a bent on adding value to that family who may have a new driver, or maybe as in collaboration with something like Young Drivers in Canada, or you pick your driving school, where it's like, let's, now that we've trained you on the basics of the car, let us put you in some defensive driving situations. Like I had the benefit of taking a defensive driving class, I think right before I got my license, because my mother was adamant. But obviously that stuff is important, especially if you don't have any experience and you happen to be maybe a little more aggressive driver than you should be, which I was clearly at that age. So what's your advice on, say, that parent who's got, a new driver, be they male or female, who maybe is a little more aggressive than they should be in terms of how to get them maybe better in a safe environment?
I It's a difficult thing to answer because at that age, kids, and I was one of them, we felt invincible. Like I'm, I felt like I was a great driver. I did hit a tree in the orchard when I which wasn't devastating, but it did happen. But you have to have that mindset, and even after a couple of years of me teaching people how to do this, when I was doing it full time, once I finished post secondary, um, and started into teaching people on the racetrack, we also had a defensive driving program that we taught, and we were running 6, 7 days a week during the season. So, but after the second season, it was near the end of the season, and I was heading to work, and I ended up having a big crash in my own car on the street, all by myself. There was a wildlife involved,
Right.
but here I am, somebody who teaches it, and I really had to sit down and get myself mentally through that. Like here I am, I'm teaching people on a daily basis how to avoid these collisions, how to train them and how to be better, to avoid them, to be more alert and understand it. And I still made the mistake. And the realization that I came to was that I did everything in my power, with the shock of this animal, trying to avoid the animal, and and maneuver. And the maneuver that I did was one that I was teaching. The only thing that caught me out was there was a guardrail post. I was on a gravel road when it happened, and it was a guardrail post that was leaning in, and it caught the rear bumper of my car, which was sliding out. And once it caught it, it just spun it, and I went into a ditch and cartwheeled. But I had the realization that if I didn't have any sort of training, that I wouldn't have even made it that far. It might have been a lot worse than it actually was. And through the years, I've had a number of people that came up to me after the fact and said, what you taught me saves me.
Yep.
And, and those sorts of things pay off. So it's more of, if we're going back to the invincible kid, it's more a case of, we get them into the situation, we create the situation with pylons where it's nice and safe, and see how they do. And the goal is not to knock them down, but to make sure that their level of driving is good. But oftentimes, and we see this in adults too, when we're on the racetrack, they come in with I know what I'm doing, and then realize pretty quickly that they're humbled. Okay, maybe I don't. Maybe I need some help. And so I think getting into an arena where we can actually push their limits as a driver is, will help them, and make sure that I mean, if they feel invincible, it might be because they really are good at what they're doing.
Yep.
It's not that often that we see that, but sometimes we do, and it has to do with their background. Whether they drove some sort of motorized vehicle when they were younger, or now that we have simulators, driving simulators, some drivers are coming up and they have a pretty good understanding of what they need to do behind the wheel when they actually get behind the wheel of a car. But putting them into a situation that's not normal, and if you've done driver training, as you suggested you did many years ago, you put into a situation where you have to react instantly. The difference is, in that situation, you're actually reacting because you have to.
Yep.
But in real life, we're driving down the road and we never know when it's going to happen. And
Yep.
suddenly we're called to duty, and we have to make it happen. And this is where the training pays off, because if you've already got the file somewhere filed in your head of this is what you do when this happens, you'll do it. The filing cabinet immediately opens, and you actually execute, maybe not perfectly, but you execute to some degree. Whereas if you don't have the file and you're put in that panic situation, you might just freeze. And that could be the worst thing that you could do.
Yeah, I mean, I always use the example of motorcycle training. People that want to get into that, and I debated it but decided not to. But that's a crucial part because in the case of a motorcycle, if you even if you don't make an error, but if you make an error and it even isn't your fault, if you can't adapt to it, yeah, you can be dead. I mean, I've been in two close call car accidents in my life. In both cases, I mean, maybe some of it was training, some of it was luck, but at the end of the day, and I almost said an animal in Saskatchewan one time too when I worked for Nissan, but in most cases, it was my experience on the road that helped me. I mean, luckily for me, one of my first jobs, I was on the road. I was driving 100 to 200 miles a day for years. So I got really good at spotting bad drivers because I was on the road so much. It was just obvious. You could see the telltale signs of them doing stupid things. But it's to your point, it's the things like weather and unseen circumstances that really can catch you off guard. One was in a snowstorm where I was driving too fast. The other one was basically just an animal being dumb and not realizing that, I was coming at it at a pretty high speed. It wasn't that high speed, but luckily for me, the brakes on the car I was driving worked well. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what to do, it could cost you your life. So yeah, that's very important. So when you're looking at clients and you're looking for people to help, or maybe there's a dealer or manufacturer says, "Hey, I want to get back into standing out from the competition." Like, what's that process for them? How does that work?
Well, it's an interesting question. If I had the answer, we probably have way more business. Um, it really comes down to when it comes to our clients, majority being car manufacturers. It really has to do with what messaging they're pushing at that particular moment, and that's something that we don't know until they tell us. We're going to change our focus. We're moving towards this. This is what we want to do. And it's again, it depends on the manufacturer and where they fit in the marketplace as to what their focus is going to be. I mean, one of the examples from a dealer perspective of things that we do often is track days at the racetrack for a dealership's customers. And
Right.
it's one of those things where the dealership isn't paying for the whole thing. They're creating a day that'll be a special day for their customers. The customer still pays to play, but they come up and it might be a subsidized thing where the dealership might pay a little bit of money towards it. And so when we're dealing with a Porsche store or a BMW store or something that's more performance oriented, a Ford store
Yep.
with the Mustangs. Those are a lot of cases what we're seeing and creating that entertainment on the racetrack. And mostly it has to do with the racetrack itself and with our team of coaches, you know, making sure that the driver's safe in what they're doing, giving them the skill and an understanding of the skill set that they need to use while they're driving, and then our coaches actually being in the car or leading them and building their confidence and their speed and them driving around corners faster than they ever have in their life before is what our goal is, because it's an amazing thrill um, to do that. So that's a great customer day, and just even a program where it could be a competition. We have a parking lot, create that pylon course of an autocross and have a timed competition, and it could be that you're doing it in your cars that you're promoting. If you have a demo and you have everybody kind of like the oh gosh, I'm going to say Grand Touring, but that's not right. Um, Jeremy Clarkson and
Oh, the Grand Tour or Top Gear.
Top Gear. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. When they did the one lap, where all their guests would go out and drive one lap, it would be that sort of idea. That every customer comes in and gets to drive a lap after a little bit of coaching from, in their case, the Stig. We, those sorts of things are great entertainment. Um, and they cost a bit of money, but again, it's one of those things that you can do to encourage people to come back and continue, um, you know, coming to the store just to experience and rehash the fun time that they had with them. Um,
What
so yeah,
kind of
there's when it comes to the driving and but are going back to your question of the manufacturers, typically it has to do with a vehicle launch or a direction that they're going with the group of vehicles. So a direction might be, their EVs, and they want to promote the EV line that they have, or the hybrid, and those are the newer things that they're starting to promote, and going around and educating people is more of the thing that they're doing. So going into trade shows or festivals, and creating that atmosphere where they can come over and learn about the vehicle.
and how would they get more information about the company, and how would they reach out to sort of, I guess, get a sense of what that would look like? And how quickly could you sort of set that up if they said, "Hey, I want to do this in the summertime," for example? Like, what's the turnaround time like?
Um, well, we'd love to have half a year, but we've done events put them together in 4 weeks. The more time you have, the better opportunity you have of saving money, because you can find the right venue, and you have a little bit more time. For us, if we have to bring in suppliers for certain things, whether it be catering or um, other areas. But it's typically the venue that is the most difficult. So the more time we have, the better chance we have of getting the venue that we want and makes most sense for where it is. Location, basically anywhere in Canada is our primary target. We don't have a American arm. That said, we've done events for the car manufacturers, Canadian car manufacturers in the U.S., bringing Canadian journalists typically down there. But it's so 4 weeks would be minimum, depending on the size of the event. Ideally, we're looking at 6 months, or even setting it up for a year ahead of time. Gives us lots of time, and we can hash things out. And getting a hold of us would be simply through our website.
Okay.
Um, and it's on our website. It has the three different areas, which is the event matrix, obviously, is the
Yeah.
main company, which has been around for 15 years. Track Matrix is a company that the name we just opened up this year. We've been doing track events for 12 years now, through a different company, um, and in association with them. And they essentially retired. They were done and
Yeah.
handed us the business. So we've renamed it Track Matrix, and then Fleet Matrix we're aiming to start up this year. So.
Fantastic. More details will be below. Obviously, if you go to eventmatrix.ca, you can reach out to obviously Jeff and his team. There is obviously a phone number there, I believe, looks like. Except I think it's a code. I don't think that, I think, oh, that's your LinkedIn profile. So there, you can go on their website. I'm sure there's a email. I'll figure that out and put that in the description. And of course, if you are someone who wants to get better at driving, you maybe want to create an experience for your customers or their children. You maybe want to look at a fleet thing, or maybe even make your staff better, who are on test drives with customers, to maybe show off things safely or teach customers about vehicles. That would be a good way to do that. Or if you're an aspirational driver, maybe you want to see if you're just full of piss and vinegar or actually know what you're doing. That might be a good test. On the motorcycle side, I'm not an expert, but I would suggest that if you want to be a motorcycle driver, you definitely take a course. if not multiple courses, because the fatality number. I've had several friends of mine die on motorcycles, so that's a whole different animal. But thanks for taking the time today. I appreciate it. And of course, if you want to get better at driving, or you want to experience vehicles, or you're a manufacturer and you want to maybe one up the competition, you should definitely reach out to Jeff, the other side, Jeff and his team, as soon as you can, because it takes some time to put this together. Thanks for taking the time today, and have yourself a great weekend.